Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Friday morning, and June 24th. I'm glad to be here. Glad it's Friday. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And the chat room is open, and I'm going to pop the link in there to what we're talking about yesterday, actually, most of the week, looking at Robert Burney's web pages from Joy to Me and You. That's www.joy2meu.com. And he's got some good information here and really good stuff about positive affirmations, and that's what we're looking at. And so I'm going to put the link in the chat room right now. But thanks to everybody for tuning into my shows. I appreciate it. You know, I have a lot of, I don't even know who most of the people are who listen to my shows. And I have some regular, friends and whatnot who do follow my shows, but a lot of people I have no idea who you are who are listening to the shows. So I thank you very much for taking the time to do that. And I had no idea how long I'd be doing these shows. I started November 2009, and I thought, well, if I'll try a few months of it and see how it goes. But this has been great. And November this year will be 2 years. So thanks for hanging out with me for a couple of years. It's just awesome. So I did pop the link into the chat room there, and I'm not a counselor or a therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own shows. You have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows. I'm talking about abuse. Abuse is a sensitive subject, and a lot of people may find the material disturbing. It could be upsetting to a lot of people, and so you have to know what's good for you to listen to. And if you think this type of material will bother you to do with abuse and violence and whatnot, then you need to turn the show off and you have to be aware of what's good for you to listen to. So it is your discretion to listen to my shows, any of my shows. So young people under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to my shows because, age appropriately, I don't know how young the people are who are listening to my shows. And so if you're under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone listen to the show with you who's an adult who can help you make a decision, whether you should be listening or not, if age appropriately. And so we'll get right into this today. I wanted to finish off this one section of positive affirmations from Robert Burney's web pages. And Robert Burney is a spiritual teacher. He's a codependence counselor. He is or therapist. He's a grief counselor, and he's an author. He's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, and which looks like a really good book, and I'd love to get a hold of it. And someday when I have some extra money, I'm going to pick up a copy. But he's got some great web pages here, just full of all kinds of stuff, and he's really, it's very thorough. Like when you go to his website, you can see there's a site index, and if you click on the site index, you can see all the stuff that he's done, and it's just an amazing amount of work. And so I just give him a lot of credit because he's really done a lot of work to bring out this information to people and to try to help people, and so it's good stuff. So hopefully everybody's getting something out of this. I know I am. So let's get right into this. And where we left off yesterday, just looking at some of the positive affirmations that he says, are very helpful for himself. He's a survivor, and he says positive affirmations are so vital in recovery because we all have a critical parent voice inside that judges and shames us, that negatively affirm us hundreds of times a day. It takes a lot of reprogramming to start accepting that we are lovable and unconditionally loved. So this is what Robert Burney says. And he says, we can say things like the entire universe loves me, serves me, nurtures me, and wants me to win. Another one is I am a radiant expression of the Goddess energy, Great Spirit, Christ within. I'm always in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity. I am radiantly beautiful and vibrationally healthy and joyously alive. And he says when we focus on what we focus on is what we create. So in order to change what we are creating, we must choose to change the way we think and work on letting go of the subconscious beliefs we learned in childhood. So it's very, I like what he has to say about stuff like that. It's very true, I kind of look back at my own situation and I think, I remember, the day that I actually really committed to myself, to allowing myself to heal and to reach out and get some help. And I remember that day. I remember how I was feeling, and I thought I have to be able to change the way I feel because I can't change the past. And I realized that and recognized that I couldn't change the past, but what I could do is change the way I felt about the past, and I could change the way that I felt about what had happened to me and change the way I felt about myself here in the present, in the now. and really just change the way I felt about life in general. And so that's what I started working on, and it just really made all the difference to change some of those negative attitudes that I had. And I'm still working on it. I mean, I still have some work to do, but I think I've come a long way. And so it has made a huge difference. And so he says, in order to change what we are creating, we must choose to change the way we think and work on letting go of the subconscious beliefs we learned in childhood. And so he gives us some more positive affirmations. And he says, I am the co-creator of my life. I am fully involved in co-creating my life in an exciting, joyous, and harmonious way. And that's one that we can say. I am the co-creator of my life. I'm fully involved in co-creating my life in an exciting, joyous, and harmonious way. So if we sit around and we think about that, we're the co-creators of our lives, and we're involved in this new exciting change. And I think if that's being really positive, like when you think about stuff like that, that's taking responsibility for our belief systems and for the way we feel and think, and it's allowing us to see that we can find joy. We can find joy in this life. We can find something to be happy about, something to be to find that joy. And that's what I was talking about on a couple of shows a while back. This has probably been months now, but I was talking about the fact that I really didn't know even how to find that inner joy, about life and stuff. And I can be happy about things, and I have no problem laughing and having a good time, and I'm happy for people when good things happen to people, and I'm happy for myself when good things happen for me. But to find that real inner joy, it was squashed when I was little. So that's the whole thing. Most of us, I think, actually, I wouldn't doubt that every single person on the planet deals with that. Where your bubble gets bursted. As a child, you start out this young, precious, innocent, sweet baby. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, life bursts your bubble. Whether it's something that's happened within the family unit, or something that's happened even with relationships at school. You grow up and you start to realize that you just become jaded. And I think that it's very hard to stay pure, that whole innocent, pure state, because your eyes are opened and your mind is opened to the horrible things. Sometimes many of us have experienced some horrible things, and it's hard to maintain that pure kind of joy that you have when you're a baby, when you're little and you're small. And that's the kind of joy that you think, wow, I mean, I should have been able to maintain even some of that, you know what I mean? But it was just completely lost, because by the time I was probably about 10 years old, I realized that I was spiritually dead. And so I was just like, go and kill my body, because I don't care, because I'm dead anyway. So that's why, I would tell my mother that, I'd just be like, go ahead and kill me, because I'm dead anyway. You've killed me already anyway. So that's bad for a child to be feeling that way, but so many children probably do at some point growing up, especially if there's a lot of, if they're growing up in a dysfunctional, abusive environment. It's absolutely horrible. But, that's what I'm working on now, is finding that inner joy, that inner peace, that, that makes me realize that, it's not all bad, and that there is goodness, there is, life is worth celebrating, and that's a big thing, for people who have come from these dysfunctional, abusive type environments. Life was not a celebration when I was growing up. It was a war zone, and for me to try to find that peace and that joy and celebrate life is a little bit hard for me. I'm still working on it, and that's something that I definitely am working on. It's going to take time, you know what I mean? It just doesn't happen overnight, and at some point I feel like I'm going to realize, like at some point I'm going to sit down and do some meditation and really, allow myself to feel these things, to really experience these things, and then, come out of that hopefully a more enlightened person, some more joy and more peace in my life. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I think that because I'm aware of it, I'm kind of looking for it. You know what I mean? And I'm still, that is an area that I'm still working on, but it can be done. I believe this. And here's another one that he says, I am now celebrating life, having fun, and enjoying myself. This is what we can tell ourselves. I am now celebrating life, having fun, and enjoying myself. So these are positive affirmations that I can tell myself. Like, I started out 4 years ago telling myself, well, I do count, I do matter, I was supposed to be born, I am worth it, I did not deserve to be treated the way that I was, and I'm a good person, I was a good kid, and these types of things, right? And I love myself. That was a big one, and to truly say, okay, I love myself, you know what I mean? And I learned how to do that. And so now I can move on to these other types of positive affirmations that are a little more, a little bit more, I don't know what you'd even call them, a little bit more spiritual, I guess. So I can say I am now celebrating life, having fun, and enjoying myself. Actually, it's kind of true. I am doing a lot more celebrating of life now than I ever have, and fully involved, in making these choices that I need to find that joy. So that's true. Having fun and enjoying myself. Well, I guess I am having some fun and enjoying myself. Things have been kind of crazy with my sweetheart being sick and in the hospital, and a whole lot of stuff happened, and I had to take care of a whole lot of things. And but he's alive, So I celebrate that every day. So there's lots of things that I do celebrate in my life, even though I'm tired and a little bit run down. There's still lots of stuff that I'm able to celebrate and say, that's awesome. So I don't just look at the negative, I quite often, actually that's what I was saying yesterday, I'm pretty much a positive thinker. I'm always looking for something to be positive about in my day, whereas my mother couldn't do that. Like, that's why my mother couldn't do that. None of my family actually was able to do that. My brothers couldn't do it. That's why they killed themselves. They couldn't see anything positive, even though there were positive stuff in. There always is something positive in every aspect. I mean, you have to look for it, and we have to look for it. I have to look for it. I could sit around and whine and complain and say, I'm going to be out of a job tomorrow, which is true. I mean, my job is over today. I'm broke. I'm in debt. My sweetheart's very, very sick. He's dying. I had to go and make his funeral arrangements Monday, and which really sucks, but that's the truth. And I had to go hang around a graveyard and pick a plot and all this stuff. And now we got to pay for this funeral stuff, and it's going to cost money. I could look at all the negatives. I don't have a car. My ankle's busted. I'm in pain and run down, feeling like catching a cold. I could just look at all these negatives in my life right now, and I could just, say life really sucks. And if I wasn't looking for the positive, I could really be down right now. This is kind of proof positive that, there is life is good. Even though all this stuff is happening to me, and happening around me, it's not just necessarily happening to me. I'm just part of it because it's my life and things are happening. I could sit there and just not look at the positives and not look at the good stuff, But I choose to not do that. What I do is I say, okay, I got a roof over my head. I still have food. I have the potential to get a really good job coming up here. I get a 2-week break, hopefully, at least 2 weeks off, to relax. That's what I do. I take a look at, I look at everything, I try to look at everything positively, because otherwise I would just be so bummed out all the time. My sweetheart was diagnosed 10 years ago, and terminally ill. He was diagnosed terminally with liver disease, and he was given 2 to 5 years. And so, this has been hanging over our heads the whole time, and we've been together for 16 years, and so we thought, well, no, we're not going to let this get us down. We'll just live our lives, and we'll just live it out, and we won't just give up. We'll never give up. We'll just keep going day to day. And that's what we do, and that's what he's had to do. And it's extremely hard to watch him suffer because he is suffering. And he was in the hospital just a while back there, and it was very, very hard to see that and to know that he's in so much pain and suffering, and that, the doctors are saying, well, we don't think he's coming out of the hospital this time, you know what I mean? And that's a harsh reality for both of us to have to face, And now they're telling us we better get everything in order because he's only got so much time left, And so that's a harsh reality, But what we do is we don't sit around saying, oh, my God, life sucks and crying the blues. What we do is we say, well, we're still here. What do you want for dinner? What do you want for dessert? What movie are we watching? We celebrate. I guess in a way I do celebrate life. I just don't go around consciously saying I'm celebrating life. I'm celebrating life. But in a way, through our actions and through our deeds, we really are celebrating life because we're not letting this get us down. I was out picking out urns on Monday. It's like, okay, picking out my sweetheart's urn, and it's like, I'm still celebrating life with him. He's not gone yet. He's still here, and so, and then I think about stuff like, well, I can still walk, and that's a miracle in itself because, that car accident could have killed me, and that was when I was 18 years old, and I can still walk. So many people are crippled, in wheelchairs, and I think about that, and I still have the ability to use both my legs, and, one of my ankles is trashed and my hip is trashed, but, I still walk, and every day I'm very thankful for that. These are little things that some people might think is not a big deal, but for me, it's a huge deal, it means everything. I can still see, I can still hear, and there's lots of things that people take for granted. I think we take for granted. Anybody can do that, just take things for granted, and what I try to do is not do that, because I realize that everything is a gift, and I can still walk. My sweetheart's still here. I still have a roof over my head. I have the potential to get a really good job coming up here, and I hopefully have a 2-week break because I'm exhausted, and the bills will get paid. I could look at the negatives if I want to, but I choose to look at the positives, and that does help a lot to keep an open mind and to appreciate what we have instead of whining about what we don't have. And I think that's a real sad way to live your life, but that's how my parents were. They were always unhappy, miserable about what they didn't have, and they had this family they could have loved and cherished, and they could have brought us up all properly, and we could have all hung out and loved each other and took care of each other, and instead they chose to be the people that looked at the negative all the time and treated each other very indecently because of it. And so, that's why I guess I choose to be the other way, you know what I mean, to look at the positives instead of the negatives, because I don't want to be like my parents. They were a really good example for me for what not to do. It's like, okay, don't do anything that they did, because what they did was a ridiculous mess, and they should be ashamed of themselves really for putting that garbage on us and for living their lives so pathetically. And it's not that I'm just writing them down. I'm just showing an example of what people will do. You know what I mean? They will let life pass them by, and they will ruin it because they will not, for 1 minute, be thankful for what they have and be thankful to have the family that they do. So my parents set this up for us, that they hated us and they didn't want us. We were not wanted. They hated us, and so they treated us like garbage. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the road, everybody's like, oh, well, you should love your parents, and you should, everybody should, well, my parents should have loved me. That's just it. They should have loved me first. They had me, and I did love them, especially when I was little, and then they turned me into a hateful creature, and then I've had to relearn how to have some love in my heart towards them, But it hasn't been easy, that's for sure. And but that's just it. I just thought, I don't want to be like them, and ruin my life and waste it sitting around, looking at the negatives and just being negative all the time. And that's what that last episode with my mother, I wrote about it in A Life of Death and Redemption, where I actually moved to Canada to get away from my dysfunctional family, and it's just like, that was because the last straw. It was just the last straw. My mom had a stroke, and she was very ill, she was very sick, but she was also manic depressive and had all kinds of issues. And she was sitting around, miserable, and her and my dad were fighting, and so I told her, she was saying, oh, I should just kill myself, and I should have just killed you years ago, and I should have killed myself, and all this stuff. And I was just so tired of listening to it. I said, there has to be something in this world that makes this worthwhile to you. You know what I mean? Life has to be worthwhile to you in some way. You had all these children, 7 children, and we all loved you very much. I wanted to see what she would say. I wanted to see what her response would be, because I wanted her to prove to me what kind of a person she really was at that point. And what did she say? She said that none of us were worth anything to her, and that she never wanted us, and that she hated kids and didn't want kids, and she didn't want us. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You put us through all of this when you could have let us go. The courts were ready to remove us from the home and take us from you guys. You could have let us go, and instead of that, you hung on to us so you could kick us around and beat on us and hurt us and call us names and curse us, so that you could take your anger out on us just because you're sick and twisted. I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, okay, that just showed me her true heart, And I thought, man, you have to be able to find some happiness and something in this world that makes it worthwhile, because there is, but you have to look for it. She couldn't even see that her friends were worth it. She had made friendships over the years, and she couldn't see that anything was good. She was very clinically ill and needed to be, have some care. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened to my dad and two of my brothers. And it's absolutely sad and pathetic that people get like that. So, I always try to look at the positives and realize that there are people in my life for a reason, and they're awesome, they're beautiful, they're a gift, and this is something that I can't throw back in the world's face and say it's not good enough. That's what my mother was doing, saying that her children didn't mean anything to her. That's what she said, you mean nothing to me. And I was just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, after all of this, and having to put up with your garbage, you could have let us go. I was just so choked. I had to leave the country. I was like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm going as far away as I can get. I'm going 2,000 miles across the border to get away from you guys. And that was at the age of 30. It's absolutely ridiculous. But that's just how sick and twisted people are, and they will not get any help. And really, she needed serious help from the time she was born, probably. She was so mistreated as a child from her very sick and twisted mother. So, very sad what happens to people. My mother's a prime example of a child who was abused and took the brunt of the abuse and lived under tyranny from my grandmother, and then went on to marry a man who abused her, and she just had no way of feeling good about life, and she was manic depressive, and horrible existence and a horrible, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, exactly, because I didn't want to end up like my mother. And I thought, even though my sweetheart does not abuse me, because I wouldn't tolerate it. He's a good man, and I wouldn't be with a man who was going to abuse me. But the thing is, I thought, why am I going to let my life be destroyed because of this? I'm like, no, that's what my mother did. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna have a good life, and I'm gonna be able to sit back at the end of the day, at the end of the road, and say, man, I gave it my best, and it was worth it. It was worth it, because otherwise, if you say it wasn't worth it and it isn't worth it, you're negating every good thing. From people, from friends and from people that do count and do matter, they do matter. You know what I mean? And it's a real cop-out to sit there and say that nothing matters. And I've been there. I know what that pity party's all about. And so, I know what it is like to sit on the other side of that and be that person saying, oh, nothing matters, it's all garbage, and, just having a hate on for life, you know what I mean? And so, I know what it's like to be there, right? But something has always pulled me out of it, you know what I mean? And I would like to think that it's God, but, you know what I mean? Whatever it was something was always driving me to hold on and to look for the good stuff, And I've always had awesome people in my life, even though I grew up in this ridiculous mess. I've always had really good friends and people that cared about me for real, you know what I mean, outside of my home and outside of my family, people that really cared and were, some of them didn't really, couldn't help me or whatever, but some of them could and some of them did try, and I had decent people in my life. And even as an adult, I've had some awesome friendships with people. So at the end of the road, at the end of my life, when if I could actually sit back and say, wow, overall rate the whole thing, I would say it was worth it. It was worth every bit of it, because I've had some great experiences with some awesome people, and living, in the here and the now, have had some really cool stuff happen, even though I could look at all the negatives and just, negate all this positive stuff in my life, which is just, that's what a lot of people do, and it just bring themselves down, and it's a bad thing. We need to stay positive, Like he says here, here's another one. Another positive affirmation. I'm glad I was born, and I love being alive. Now, this is a big one. I used to say that I wish I had never been born. Now, that's horrible. And, I used to say that. I think a lot of people do just out of desperation. Sometimes people will say that, oh, I wish I was never born. And kids will sometimes say that, just because they're cranky and miserable because something's not going their way or whatever. Or maybe they're just being mistreated, like myself. But sometimes they'll say stuff like that. I wish I was never born. I never should have been alive. And I used to say stuff like that. I wish I was dead, or I wish I was never born, because my mother was always saying that, right? She was quite often saying that. Like, I'd come in the room and she'd be miserable and crying, and I'd be like, don't cry, Mom, and I'd be like, she'd be like, I'm going to just kill myself. I should kill myself. And I'd be like, oh, don't kill yourself, Mom. And she'd be like, you shut up, you rotten whore, and you should have never been born in the first place. So this was her attitude towards me. It wasn't like a loving, oh, here, come your daughter, let me hug you. It was like, you shut your mouth, because I should have killed you years ago. I'll kill you now. You know what I mean? She was a hateful, miserable person, and you know, I grew up hearing that all the time, that I never should have been born. I was supposed to be dead, and I started to believe it. I mean, especially by the time I was, like I said, about 10 years old, I realized that my spirit was dead, and that that's how I felt. My spirit was dead, and that there was no sense in my human body going on, my flesh body. I mean, I was just like, go ahead and kill me. You've killed me already. You know what I mean? Absolutely horrible to feel that way. I did not love being alive. I hated my life. I hated my body. I remember being around 12, 13, well, maybe even 12, 11, 12, even before I was 13. Around 13, I started to feel a little bit better because my friends, I had these two friends that were so decent to me that they were really caring, and they actually were acknowledging I was on the planet. So, I mean, I was pretty happy. But I'd say around the age of 11, 12, I hated my body. I just hated myself. You know what I mean? I hated my very existence, my being, the person I was. It was a hard period of time in my life, and it was right in junior high school. And I remember wanting to self-injure. I didn't self-injure, but I wanted to. I wanted to rip myself to shreds. And I carried that feeling with me for many, many years. And it was just this feeling of wanting to get out of my skin, like I just wanted to get out of my skin so that I could get away from it. You know what I mean? It was so ugly and so heinous to me, and that was just my own perception of who I was and what had happened to my body. It had, the betrayal, you know what I mean, to my body from my parents and my sibling, you know what I mean? And so, and myself, my the betrayal to my spirit, as a small child, it's absolutely horrific, and I thought, I was so miserable, I didn't care if I lived or died, so I was doing drugs and doing a lot of drugs, and I was drinking as much as I could. Like, I wouldn't have go out and have a couple of drinks just for fun with my friends, sneaking alcohol, because we knew how to get a hold of all this stuff, right? I mean, I would drink bottles of alcohol, and I didn't care if I died. I was like, whatever, I'm dead anyway, so it really doesn't matter. That was my attitude, and horrible, absolutely horrible, and you can never get that time back, and something just kept telling me to hang in there, you know what I mean, and just to hold on. I guess I was just thinking, well, I guess I must just love to suffer because I'm still here, and 4 years ago, I was like, no more of that. I'm going to learn how to love myself. I'm going to learn how to love and accept myself for who I am. I'm going to learn to accept the good things about myself and to see the good things about myself and not just the negative. And so this positive affirmation stuff is really important. People think it's silly, and I actually thought it was really stupid myself. I thought, oh yeah, who wants to sit around saying positive affirmations? It didn't seem like cool to me, you know what I mean? But I was willing to do it, and I thought, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see if I can change the way I feel, and it really did. It really helped me out. So I am glad I was born, and I love being alive. And now I can truly say that and be honest about it. I'm glad I was born, and I love being alive. That's the very truth of it right there. And so, I went from a child hating my life and wanting to die and hoping that my mother would kill me, or my dad, well, either one, to an adult who cares about life and loves people, loves myself. And so this is the transformation. This is the redemption, and that's why I call it a life of death, the redemption, because I was redeemed. Given another chance just because I hung in there, and that's what I hope that you will do as well. You hang in there too. And so we'll finish this up on Monday. So, I'll be on the weekend on my other shows and stuff. And, you just take care of yourselves. Make sure that you do get some help. Don't suffer alone in this. If you feel like you just need to talk to somebody, there's a lot of anonymous child abuse support groups out there where you can just have a fake name and you can just be as anonymous as you want to. Call a crisis line if you have to. Sometimes we don't have people to talk to, and that's all there is to it. Sometimes people are busy and they're at work and they don't have time to talk, and you're in the middle of a crisis and you're breaking down. Do not allow yourself to give up, not ever. You listen to the sound of my voice and you see how serious I am about this. You don't do that. You make sure that you stick around. I don't care. It might be a really bad day, but there's better days ahead. We have to go through some seriously bad days sometimes. I know that everybody on the planet has to face this. But especially for us, for those who have been abused and so mistreated and so destroyed, we have some bad days, some really bad days. But you know what? There's better days on the other side of that, but there won't be if you don't stick around and you don't look for them. You have to look for them. You actually have to make them happen. So make sure you stick around and get some help, and do not ever give up. I'm so serious about this. So take good care, and we'll talk to you soon. Hopefully you have a good weekend. Bye-bye, everybody.